The daily life in the Aztec Empire. The life of Aztecs was luxury. The Aztecs enslaved and the poor to do all the work. How the rich lived. They lived in homes made out of sun-dried bricks. Homes had a separate place for steam baths. Bathing was important for them. They bathed daily. Feathers were a sign of status. Their clothes were embroidered and decorated with feathers. And they would carry fans made from feathers as well. How the poor lived. They were most farmers, lived in huts, and they had less furniture. They had woven mats and made baskets to carry their belongings. Each poor had a garden so that they could grow their food. Their clothes were simple and had no feathers. It was against the law for poor people to carry feathers. If they broke this law, they would be killed. All children had to go to school. Everyone had to know the law and follow the law. It was forced. How and whom did these people fight against? The Aztecs would usually fight and conquest against the neighboring areas. There were two reasons for why they did this. The Aztecs would usually fight and conquest against the neighboring areas. There were two reasons for why they did this. 1. To take captivities for religious reasons so that they would satisfy their gods. 2. The war played a major part in the Aztec society for the Aztecs warriors. The Aztec warriors would get high honors, which would usually benefit a life of a poor, because most Aztec warriors were poor. Successful Aztec warriors would get high honorings such as land or rich clothing and privileges and status of noble for commissioners. For weapons, they would usually use a club, a bow and arrow, and a spear and a dart. 3. What happened to the ancient Aztec civilization? Francisco Hernandez de Corrapta was the first European to visit Mexico with 3 ships and 100 men in the early 1570s. Cordoba reported the Spanish governor to send a large army to Mexico under the commands of Cortes in March 1519. Cortes landed at the town of Tabasco and then found the city of Veracruz, where he trained his army. Cortes and 400 soldiers then marched into Mexico. Cortes then arrived in Tenochtitlan, where Montezuma and his people greeted Cortes. Cortes was able to immediately take Montezuma as hostage and gaining control of Tenochtitlan. They then murdered thousands of Aztecs. 2,440 Aztecs died, which effects ended the Aztec civilization. Did we gain anything from the Aztecs? Yes, we gained quite a lot from the Aztecs, such as mandatory universal education. The Aztec Empire was one of the first places in the world to have mandatory education for everyone. Education was very important for the Aztecs, for both genders. Something else that we gained from the Aztecs is popcorn. There was popcorn before the Aztecs, but the Aztecs were the one who introduced it to us. Chocolate, thank God. The Aztecs also introduced us to chocolate. The Aztecs used to use their cacao bean as currency and would make a spiced chocolate drink with cacao beans. Antipasmonic medicine was a big one. The Aztecs invented some kind of medicine, asapomic medication, that would prevent the spasms of muscles and would relax muscles. They used the passion flower for this and would make a mixture with their passion flower which would create this medical to prevent muscle spasms. 5. The past with the modern equivalent. The life of the Aztecs was much easier, simple, very localized than how life was now. The Aztecs lived all together and all did most of the same jobs, but nowadays they don't live similar to how they lived. But we do have transport and more jobs, and we are more advanced than how the Aztecs used to live. The Aztecs all have similar jobs because they were localized, but nowadays we aren't so localized, and we have a lot of options for jobs. We are more advanced with our transport nowadays than back then. They had no cars, no buses, no trucks, no bikes, no transport. The only way they could travel was on foot. Sources. This rock art was very useful to us as it shows the different weapons they used to fight with. The rock is called the warrior's stone. There's a spear, dart, club, and a bow and arrow. This drawing from the Aztecs tells us about what they ate. As you can see, they have corn, which they were boiling to make popcorn. This artwork shows the difference between the rich and poor. The rich wore feathers and commanders, the poor slaves around. The poor were farmers and almost didn't wear any clothes. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a lot about our presentation.